is this something I'm going to remember in 5 years? And if it's not, then why am I giving it so much attention right now?
Leaders lean in when they hear other leaders, be vulnerable, especially about that kind of epiphany moment.
Breaking your habits to start building momentum so you can magnify your success. No matter what happens today, I've now done what I said I was going to do right there.
Yep.
Then it allows you to control what you can control and then react accordingly when you can't.
Jason Yarusi, he is just a phenomenal leader and has taught me so much from afar. I have dove in completely to his YouTube channel and have watched so many incredible videos to even grow my own personal life and my business. And I'm so excited. He has got a huge knowledge base of performance management, extensive experience leading businesses. And so, Jason, welcome to the Speak with People podcast. Well, could you, for our listeners, just dive in a little bit to your story, kind of let them know who you are, what you've done, kind of what's gotten you to this place?
Sure. So give you the quick rundown. Today, I'm a private fund manager of about 300 million of investment real estate, mainly targeted down here in the Southeast. We've been buying apartment communities back since 2016. I've acquired a little over 3,500 apartment units to date. I've grown pretty rapidly in that place.
Wow.
But it's been a very non-traditional path here. So, during high school, had a lot of loss in my formative years, right? I was a very shy kid, came from a family where my dad was very closed off. He had a lot of struggles in his point, and I was very closed off. And then I had a bunch of events just continue to just set the stage to just kind of beat me down, right? So at 13, my best friend, he was just killed in a boating accident. When I was 14, had a friend who got in a car with some people that weren't doing great things, some alcohol, some drugs, and he was on the football team with me, and he got in an accident and died. And at 15, had a friend that just very like the happiest kid that you could imagine. And for some reason, nothing, committed suicide. And
Wow.
then at 17, I had one person in my life that was this girlfriend that I could just kind of like connect and like talk to, right? Well, so happens we get our licenses, everybody's out, doing their thing. And she got in a car with a couple girls and they were going down the beach. Accident happens and she was the one who passes away. I basically leave high school just dejected, just thinking everything that I had like in reach could easily be taken away from me. I just was really lost. And so had great grades, and I ended up just not really caring about anything after that. So school came by, I was playing football and some football coach came and said, you come to the school. And I was like, okay. And at the time, to be honest, I couldn't even tell you what state it was when I just said, okay. I was just like, yeah, I'll
Wow.
go there. So got there and just had no direction, right? So I was picking things just ad hoc, chose a major because I had a girlfriend's mom say you were good at business. So, why don't you do business for a degree? So I got a finance degree and left college and just went out into the world just not wanting to be in finance, right? So here I am with this degree and, that happens a lot, right? But I was just lost. I was picking things as they come just in a very sporadic fashion. So I ended up working in bars and working in restaurants and just picking odd jobs. And I wasn't happy with life, right? I was just mad at the world, right? I was mad at anybody. I was mad at you. I was mad at the environment. I was mad at, just the economy. I was just mad at everything, mad
Yep.
at my family until one day I was working at a bar and got off at like 2:30, 3 in the morning, got on my bike to go home, just, mad at the job, just mad at just hating where I was and rode across Manhattan, made a right onto Second Ave, and at nowhere, a car came out of nowhere and just hit me and I was flying through the air. So get pulled out of the street, taken to the hospital, I get a pin in my wrist, I had a broken shoulders, a bunch of stitches,
Wow.
and I get out of the hospital to the next morning. And the only thing I could think about was like, okay, I got to get back to work because I need to make money for rent. And there was this moment of pause. I'm not going to say it was like some epiphany, but there was a moment where I was like, okay, wait, hold on. So last night, I hate everywhere I am, hate everything that's happened to me. I'm just very unhappy with everything I was. Now here I am hit by a car, and all I can think about is like, and now I have to get back to this life that I just
Wow.
don't want to be with. And it wasn't a perfect path, but I said to myself, okay, listen, if that's the choice, then I'm making dumb decisions, stupid decisions. I can't be upset with the results because I'm making these decisions. Or start to try something different, right? Try to start to do something different outside of what you've been doing. Let's see what happens.
Yep.
So slowly but surely, I started to do some things in a more positive light, right? So stop being up so late, no drinking at work, stop putting myself in situations that could cause bad habits, start to get up at a set time, start to work out consistently. And lo and behold, slow momentum started to build.
Wow.
And from there, I went from, working in the bars and restaurants. I ended up opening up a bar, opened up a restaurant in New York City, opened and sold a brewery in New York City. Ended up helping move into New Jersey to help my dad, who had struggled for many years, to scale his construction business before moving into real estate and starting down the path that has led me to where I am today.
Wow. Holy, like there's a lot there. I mean, just in your story. I mean, that is, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I don't even know how to process that much loss in those formative years. I mean, unbelievable. And to be
And
able
I
to kind
didn't
of,
either. Yeah,
wow, right.
it's like, and I don't know if anybody was. Everybody said, "Well, go to therapy," and I was like, "Well, I don't want to." I'm talking to some like old person that like I'm just, and there was for me, it took many years for me to just like come to a realization with myself, to just be self aware how I was showing up.
Yeah.
And that was the most difficult moment.
Yeah.
And I think what really stood, and I'll let go, is that when I look back on it today, I'm a father with kids myself, and I look upon it more, take me out of the position, but looking at the families, like the parents, like the impact it had on them. Like a couple of those parents got divorced, right? There was, it was just very difficult path
Yeah.
ahead for them.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine being in that position.
Right. And I can't thank you enough for your vulnerability to share that. I mean, leaders lean in when they hear other leaders, be vulnerable, especially about that kind of epiphany moment. I do want to ask you one thing though. We talk about communication a lot on the podcast. Do you think now with kids of your own, have you had to struggle against, you talked about how your dad was a little closed off, we've kind of all been there at seasons of our life, but have you had to kind of struggle with that with your own kids to go, okay, I experienced this way. I'm going to make sure I do it this way. Didn't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I do. It's something I'm conscious of, because that's my immediate reaction is just go into that part of solitude, right?
Right.
That's just how I was born. Like my dad today, we've found a great relationship, but like from high school through like after college, I couldn't. Yeah, I probably couldn't give you 5 times that I've talked to my dad. He
Yep.
was out there, it was like time even before like cell phone. He would just be out, like he'd be gone before I was up, and back after I was asleep, right? So he would just work very
Yep.
hard, and he was out there, but there was a lot of tough times for him. And nothing against him. That's, the age he grew up in too. So what I've really focused on today is that go the opposite, and like it's like go against the will of what your mind wants to do, right? What's been
Wow.
embedded. And that's the hardest thing to do, because, I'm still guilty of it. But in that fact, I've been trying to be more conscious of it as it comes up, because that's my natural feeling. My natural feeling is that, okay, something comes up, just go handle it yourself. Don't communicate. Just go do it, or just, go be in solitude. That's the easy approach, when in fact it's the wrong approach.
Wow. Wow, that's powerful. When you kind of had that epiphany moment, did it kind of wake you up to a sense of, okay, this is what I want success to look like for my life? I mean, where you're sitting now, how do you just personally gauge success as a leader?
So you can go to the quick way is when I look at my kids, right? My success is going to look like if I can give them the preparation to be in the position to make good decisions, I will
Ooh,
feel fulfilled, right? Now,
yes.
it doesn't mean that like we all make decisions that we look back on and we hope that, we could have changed. We can't. I hope I will prepare them to a way to be able to make good decisions. It's the same thing I look with our company. We've grown when I've gotten out of the way, right? Many times you want to be a task giver, right? Like I'll give you a task and you go do it. You come back to me for the next task. And then, your employees aren't committed because they don't know what the goal is, right? They're out there, they
Right.
do it. And okay, and then you get to the next task, okay, and then it's now stopping my growth because I'm here having to stop every 5 minutes, and it's stopping my employees to be really fulfilled and committed to the role. And so when I've empowered them to say, here is where the goal is, here's our aim, right? Here is the path that I've led before. But let's think about other opportunities for what this could be better, more efficient, fill in the blank. What you find is that maybe my way was good, but many times you'll come back with a more engaged employee or even family member, right? Who now is committed to what they're doing because they know where they're going, but they also will come back with a better way to do it because my eyes have had, blinders on it saying this is what I've
Wow.
done.
Did it take a while for you to get to that place? Did you kind of, I mean, you worked in a lot of, I worked in restaurants, that was when I was a college kid as well. I mean, it's a fascinating industry and I think it helped set me up, for some things. But did it, especially as a business owner, did it take you a while? Did you have that season where you're trying to hold on to everything? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, I did have that season, and that was one that capped our growth initially with
Wow.
expanding in real estate. But
Yeah.
I saw it. I was aware of it, but I went back to like this was like autopilot for me because one of the big struggles that I would have with my dad is that you would see a way that was easier with that was more productive that would be cleaner, and we would just clash over it. And I equated it to be like, Dad, right now it's like we're trying to bang through a steel wall and there's a door right there. Let's just take the door.
Right.
I know you've gone through the wall every time, but like let's just take the door. And we would have conflict, you could call it Italians all together or whatever you wanted to, right? But it was just that fight of like
Yeah.
just making sure like this is the way, right? It's like the Mandalorian, this is the way. And so I started to learn that approach saying, okay, just because you've done that, right? Does and it's worked before doesn't mean it always worked, right? We've seen that, failure
Yeah.
on so many levels of so many businesses where they've done it forever and they refuse to change, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden what happens is that they become extinct because it's
Yep.
no longer a viable solution. Well, it's the same thing with all levels, construction. We would I would I always laugh because you would have somebody come and say, "Well, I've been doing it this way for 20 years." And in my mind I'd be like, well, it just means you've been doing it wrong for 20 years. Like the amount
Right.
of time does not mean anything of
Right.
validation. Right? There's always a way that you can change and improve. And I was stuck just not approving, right? The one thing I remember clearly leaving school is I was like, great, I'd never have to read again. And it was like, what a silly comment. It was like I never have to read again. As I look back today, it was like, what am I just not going to get any better? But my mind was so set and just being upset at the world that I was focused outward instead of where I should have really been focused inward.
Wow. Wow. My goodness, that is incredible. Talk to us a little about, you kinda have a program that, helps drive transformation. I mean, this is the kind of things that leaders we kinda get stuck in that rut, I've talked to so many leaders who, like you just said, "Well, we've kinda done it for 20 years," especially for Speak with People. I go in and I challenge and empower leaders to communicate in healthier ways. And communication's like something we've always done. So we're like, I'm just going to keep doing it. But we've got to keep transforming as leaders. I would love for you to dive into some of those key principles of your program and just how you help leaders achieve that next level.
Sure, and as I'm sure you go in there is it doesn't mean you have to throw everything away,
Right.
right? What it means is that, and that's where many times people like have that resistance. You'll see it from leadership when leadership tries to introduce new things to the business or to
Yes.
people within their staff because they're like, "Oh, I've done it like this. I don't want to change," right? Because change is scary, right?
Yeah.
And I like let's get that out there. Change can be very scary because it's not the normal of what you have now. Although when you look at it, every single thing is changing. Everything
Wow.
around us is changing, right? They say, it's the saying like you never step into the same river twice. One, because the river's moving, two, because you're a different person. Well,
Right.
everything is changing whether you wanted to or not. But what we have to continue to adapt is to continue to improve to let our standards continue to level up. And what I came through is people were like, "Well, what did you do to be able to now make the impact you have today? But really just change yourself, right? Be disciplined to what you do today." And I looked back upon it, and we started helping and presenting the Live 100 message, which was built on three foundational blocks, which is breaking your habits to start building momentum so you can magnify your success.
Wow.
And where that really lies first is on self-awareness. I that will say the day after the car accident, I became self-aware that I wasn't showing up as the person I wanted to, right? I was
Yeah.
saying, "Okay, listen, like, I'm showing up, I'm doing bad things, I'm getting crazy results, like, I'm not having good reactions, I'm having a lot of anger, right? I'm having a lot of just, unfortunate settings regardless." I was the one who was in control of my feelings.
Yep.
So it became now being a self-aware and owning it, right? Okay, I'm owning it. I'm not being great. So I'm not
Wow.
getting good results. Like, okay. Hey, it's not some magical mythical thing. It was just I wasn't doing good things, and the results were not what I wanted to. And when I started owning that and started looking at exactly what I was doing, right, then I could start positioning myself for greatness, right? And what that becomes is
Wow.
that many times it's not the goal, and that's where we get lost. We look at this goal that's miles down the road, and we say, "Well, that's where I want to be," but it's so foreign from where you are today. What we
Mm,
have to look at is that first step, and that's the most important thing, is that if we want change, we just have to be a little bit better than yesterday. You're not going to just eliminate all your habits, right? If you're getting up late, if you're drinking all the time at night, if you have a horrible diet, if you're not working out, if you're not coming prepared to work, you're not going to go from just 0 to 100 changing everything tomorrow. But
wow.
what you can start to do is start to replace some of the things that maybe they did work for you in the past, but some of the things that you absolutely know don't work, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, tomorrow, can have the same diet, don't work out. Can you just not drink at nighttime? And let's just get through that one night. Let's just start replacing that. And instead of drinking, maybe we'll have, replace it with something, green tea, reading a book, right? You can find something to
Yep.
replace it. Because what usually is the failure is that we try to go cold turkey, but there's no replacement at that time. So that 20 minutes that you used to do this, you now do nothing. And so you're just like, I don't know what to do. And then you go back to that habit that you are so accustomed to. And when we can
Yeah.
start to replace our habits with something productive, slowly but surely it starts to build into our system. It starts to build into who we want to be. And what that does is it allows us to start mastering, meaningful habits and rituals. And what will that do? Well, that's going to allow you to become the person and live the fulfilling life that you know is in you.
Wow.
And that's usually where the gap is that you can be this person. We're just not making the day one decisions to get us there. We're worried about the day, 1000 decision of when you have $1 million or when you have that great job or when you have that degree or when you are in that position, right? But what you're forgetting is that you have to start showing up as that person today for those things to become true.
Wow. 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 So true and so powerful. I mean, people talk all the time about, I can't do cold turkey, and then they stick with that for years, and so they'll just stop the transformation and the momentum. It's so amazing to me. I wonder if you could talk to us a second about self-talk, because the communication you as a leader say to yourself, I can't remember who said it. Recently, I read, the most difficult or the most abrasive communication you might hear as a leader is your your own words to yourself. How do you have you ever struggled with that, or how do you replace some of those words to make sure I love how you said that, worry about the day one. I mean, goodness gracious, that's powerful.
When you think about your thoughts and when you think about it, like if you come from a world like your surroundings are negative, right? So your immediate response is going to be negative,
Wow.
right? And you hear
Yep.
it when you start to be aware of it, you start to hear it around you, right? You start to hear it, people in defeat mode as they're talking, as they're going. You can go from anywhere, like in the grocery store, like at work. You can start hearing how people are showing up, and it makes you more aware of how you're showing up because we live, 98% of the day is subconscious, right? And then we have
Wow.
75 to 80,000 thoughts a day, of which 80% are repeated. And so if you're just having negative upon negative upon negative upon negative,
Yep.
your day is just negative and you're not even thinking about it, right? You're not
Yep.
even aware of it. And I look at it as like if you have a glass of water right now and you just take that glass of water and you just take just a pin drop of just anything like dark liquid and put it in there. All of a sudden, right, that glass of water is now it's now foreign or cloudy or musky, right? Well, that
Yep.
little drop is all the negativity we need within ourselves to ruin our day. And we can all think about it. Like think about perfect day and someone runs in the back of your car, right? Now that 1 second thing has now ruined your day. Or perfect day, someone cuts you off. Or perfect day, you get an email, right? You have all these things, and like a 5 second thing can ruin your day. Vice versa, right? You can have an entire negative day and you can have one positive thing comes and it does nothing. You're still in the negative, right? Because our mind immediately goes to the negative. If you had the reverse, if you had like a cup of coffee, right, black coffee, and you tried to pour a little bit of water in it, it make no difference, right? You would have to
Right.
pour so much over the top just to get you to a point where you'd have some clarity to it. Well, the same thing goes with our thoughts. We have to be conditioned to understand how we're showing up and then pause and then look at the inverse of that,
Wow.
right? You have to say, oh, I hate that. Well, Why? Like, do you really hate that? Or it's not my favorite, but a better option for me would be this, right? So you start putting your mind to thinking the positive, right? Oh, that won't work. Oh, what if that would work, right? I can't do that. Well, why couldn't I not do that, right? You always change the position now because it allows your mind to not just close off. Because the
Right.
easiest thing to do is just close off and just say, nope, done. But if you give yourself the chance and start saying, to be more opportunistic or optimistic to the result, well, a lot of things start happening. If you the Stockholm syndrome, have you heard of this? Right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a great example, right? You can be in dire circumstances, right, and understand that the circumstance is dire, and truly look at it in a dire state, but be optimistic that there's a path ahead
Wow.
that could come of this results. And that's every day with life is we look at everything as in the worst mode instead of just saying, why not be happy with what we have?
Yep.
And then we'll get even happier as we get more things.
Wow.
Your happiness doesn't come with the results, right? It's like, oh, when I have this car or meet this person, then I'll become. No, you need to be what you want to show up later as now, today. You
Wow.
have to act you have to act like you're wealthy in your mind to see wealth come to within your bank account.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I think just even as you're introducing, some of the stuff you're doing now with how many apartment units you guys own and represent, like, did you ever imagine? I mean, or was it just, were you just focused and, the kind of the day one unit at a time? Did you see it becoming, this size and scope? And, or is this just a drop of the bucket to what you have, planned for the future?
So now it's a step upon our journey. But in the beginning, I had to build myself because I was in that point. I was in that defeatist mode of always the worry that I wasn't enough or wasn't a part. And that still creeps in today that I can't do or I won't do or I won't be able to do, right? That's all present because each and every day you have to wake up with yourself again. It's not
Yep.
like you do it yesterday and yesterday was perfect. Today, again, it's no longer there. You get more fortified in the mind. So it gets easier to surpass some of these hurdles here.
Wow.
But I look at these things when we face difficulty, is this something I'm going to remember in 5 years?
Wow.
And if it's not, then why am I giving it so much attention right now?
Yes.
And that's usually where our mind is. We treat everything as if everything is the end, right? And many times, most of these things we don't remember. So when I looked at the growth, my first part was, okay, other people are doing this. Well, how are they doing this, and why can't I do that? So we went from flipping houses to buying a 94-unit apartment building. And now is the step to say, okay, but once you start to get the confidence built, then you can expand it, right? You can see that with anything. Someone who's growing a business, someone who wants to go out there and lose weight. Once you start getting the steps down and understand the process, it's the steps that lead you to the journey. And when you do, the goals you have, they just become mile markers. You're so far past the goal that you focused on when you stop focusing on the goal and just focus on the things you can control.
Wow. Wow. It's always fascinating to ask leaders. There seems to be a couple of different thought processes out there for discipline and early mornings and rituals and routines. Which camp do you find yourself in? Are you in the camp that says yes, or use every second you can in those early mornings? Find a ritual that you have a habit that you do every single day. There's the other camp that says, you know, uh, yeah, that's not as important. What what do you think for your own personal life? What have you found, that's
The
helped you perform?
morning and getting up early has been very important for me. Now, I'll say this with a caveat, and again, we teach like I'm not going out and saying do these 5 steps in the morning and it will magically change. You have to find what your controls are, and I'll
Wow.
speak to this in its more ways. Is that the reason I do this is I set the stage to have a control in the day. So when things come up that are unexpected, I've already had control in my day that I can go focus on those. And so, for
Wow.
instance, I wake up early. I get up, I have a glass of water, I meditate, I go work out, right? When I come back now, my kids are going up, my wife can now have her moment of time. I can help, we'll take the kids to school, and then I go to work, right? So the second I walk into work, if there's a fire, I've already had my wins, my successes, the things that I've now committed my mind. And I've had
Wow.
peace in my mind that I
Yep.
can go focus on that. Where the disruption is, oh, well, I don't want to wake up early and do that, or just want to have anything. I just want to do as it comes in the morning. Well, where that can falter is that, okay, you wake up late, you hit the snooze button a couple times. Now you're rushing. Maybe you don't get something to eat, so you're starving, or you eat something poor, and then you get into the car. Now you're stuck in traffic. You're mad about traffic, although nobody wants to be in traffic, right? Now here you
Right.
are, late to work. Now you're flustered because everything is a chaotic moment throughout the day. You get to the end of the day, and you're like, oh, I'm never doing that again. You sit down, you drink a beer, you start watching Netflix, and then the same day repeats. And that happens for months,
Yep.
weeks, forever. And because you have no control. And where I found that just taking that moment, and you could do it during the middle of the day, but if you can have some moment where you can go, you just find your place where saying, okay, no matter what happens today, I've now done what I said I was going to do right there.
Yep.
Then it allows you to control what you can control and then react accordingly when you can't.
Wow. Wow. So incredibly helpful. What advice would you give to the leader who's, sitting in an office? Maybe they feel their company doesn't, do enough to care for them, and they're just kind of getting a little negative about it. What steps could you, or advice could you give them to make sure that they're kind of, taking the onus on themselves to make sure they're not slipping into some of those bad habits?
I would absolutely double down on carrying yourself.
Ooh,
I would put all the energy into there to just double down, and because you can't control people are going to show up. Hopefully, you're surrounded by the right people, and if not, then that might be a decision that you have to make to find better people to surround yourself with. But you can control you're showing up, and so maybe that negativity is now coming off that you're not giving your all because. Even though it's not being said, it can be present within your
ooh,
energy, within your
right.
face, right? So when you're showing up in the office and you're just mad that everybody else isn't doing what you think of their expectations, it could be that you are not giving your all. So I'd say double down. And then number two from there would be that make sure you're clear on the vision that you're providing to your team because they may think they're doing a great job, but they might not have the guidance from you to truly, truly understand. And
Yeah.
if I said that, you can't talk to every person the same way. So, like there's many people that you need to have either, a straight rational talk, an emotional talk. So make sure if you're presenting what you want done, make sure it's clear. And I learned this lesson, I was not a good communicator and my dad was not a good communicator. My dad would say, grab this, do that, and then expect, magic to be done when everybody was looking around, no one even understood what the tool,
Right.
right? And so, like that's the same thing I would do is I would not give a clear description and a clear objective and a clear path forward to the people around me. I'd say, okay, here you go, just go. And any result coming back was the result that they thought was good, but I wasn't clear in my expectations. And when you're not clear with your expectations, then you can't be very clear on what you want when you don't get it.
Wow. Wow. Absolutely. That's so powerful. As we kind of turn the corner, I mean, you've given us I filled a page of notes here. I mean, just incredible insight. Uh, Folks that are interested in, kind of stepping into the, real estate investment arena, been thinking about it. Any, advice you'd give, for newbies right in the beginning?
Yeah. Easy thing is get specific with what you want. And you'd say, well, how do I know what to be specific? Just pick a lane because where the difficulty comes is there's a lot of people in real estate, but where the ones win are is that they're very specific in what they do. They flip houses that are between $400,000 and $600,000 in these two cities, right? Or
Right.
they buy apartment communities that are 75 to 100 units, right, in this one city. Where people do not do well is that, oh, I'll try tax liens, then Airbnb, then wholesaling, then flipping, right? Then and you're trying it all at the same time. You're the
Right.
master of nothing. And so anybody who's specifically focused on that is going to kill you in the strategy because they're going to be much quicker to act in where it is. And if you try something and you get very specific what it was, it's going to give you one of three results. Either you're going to not like it at all. So for which you can stop and not do that anymore and say, okay, at least I eliminated something.
Yep.
Two, you're like, I kind of like it, but I'd like it a little bit different if it was like this. And then now you can alter what you're doing to meet your capabilities and what you want of it. Or three, you're spot on. And you now pour fuel on the fire. But that's your action step where usually there's some great real estate podcasts, but there's so many different various forms of real estate that you can get lost in just
Yep.
all the different paths. So just, they say riches in the niches, and it's true.
Wow. Yeah, it's so true. When I first started to speak with people, a mentor said that to me, and I'm like, no, I could do this, and I could do that, and I could do this, and as soon as I turned the corner to get very, very focused, I was like, okay, wow, this opportunity, this opportunity, this opportunity. Boy, that's so helpful. So last question for you. As you're now helping more and more leaders, I mean, you've had an incredible journey. You figured out so much, now you've turned the corner and you're inspiring, you're helping other leaders. What kind of keeps you motivated and inspires you to keep helping other people achieve, their highest potential?
I think the cleanest thing there is that it's empowering to see people believe yesterday that they couldn't, and then believe today that they could.
Wow.
And usually that's the path forward, with getting clear on where you want to go and then setting a path forward. Where
Wow.
belief falls is that when we're not clear on what we're looking for, well, then it's hard for us to believe we're going to find it.
Yep.
And it's easy for us to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then it sounds like we're doing it when in fact we're not taking any of the steps.
Wow. Wow, that's powerful. So as we kind of wrap up, a few rapid fire questions. We're building this online library for leaders and communicators to go find new resources and the best. And so we're asking our guests some of their favorite resources. So is there a speaker, a thought leader who, man, you watch their TED Talks, their YouTube videos, whatever it is, and you just think, wow, every time they blow you away, fill your cup, you're forwarding that, clip to email. Any speakers stand out for you that you'd recommend?
I'd say Walter Bond. It's a
Okay.
man I got to know. He's great. Him and his wife are dynamic. She really it helps set the stage for the business side, and Walter is dynamic on the stage.
I love it. Is there a podcast, either guilty pleasure or development that you keep going back to? If you're a podcast
Mm.
person, you forward that on to people.
I mean, the All In podcast is always great, right? So the All In podcast talks about all kinds of investment topics and all kinds of things happening out there in the economy. That's definitely one for sure.
Yeah. And then is there a book that you'd say, "Hey, boy, if you get stuck in a desert island, you only have one book. Boy, this every leader should read this book."
So leader wise, how about extreme ownership, Jocko Willink? I think that if you're on a desert island, you got there somehow, so you might as well own it.
I love it. I love it. Well, Jason, I can't thank you enough. This has been absolutely incredible.
This is great, great conversation. Thank you for having me.